The wind moved like a ghost through the upper ridges of the Rockies, whispering through the pine needles and rattling the frozen branches. The year was 1824, deep in the heart of the fur trade era, when the great wilderness of the American West stretched farther than any map could follow. The snow lay knee-deep across the valley floor, broken only by the faint trail of one man. His name was Elias Crow, a mountain man hardened by 6 winters alone in this untamed land. Each breath that left his lips froze instantly, curling into the air like smoke from a dying fire. The mountains were both his home and his prison. Weeks had passed since he'd seen another human face. His world was the sound of creaking trees, the crack of ice underfoot, and the distant cry of a raven circling somewhere above. Elias carried everything he owned on his back: a flintlock rifle, a hunting knife, a skinning blade, and a powder horn filled with just enough black powder to last another few hunts. His coat was stitched from elk hide, its seams darkened by years of smoke and wear. Each patch told a story, each scar on his hands a memory of how close he had come to losing everything. Winter on the frontier offered no mercy. The rivers froze solid, the beaver traps went empty, and the game moved to lower valleys where the snow was thinner. Elias knew that without a successful hunt soon, he wouldn't have enough dried meat to last through March. Hunger was a patient enemy. It waited quietly until your strength faded and your judgment dulled. He could already feel it creeping in. The forest around him held signs for those who knew how to read them. A patch of snow disturbed by hooves. The faint scent of musk carried by the wind. He crouched low, studying the ground the way another man might study a book. Every detail spoke. A snapped twig told the weight of the animal. The direction of the tracks showed where the herd was moving. Even the way the snow had refrozen over print hinted at how long ago it had passed. Elias's eyes were sharp, trained by years of watching, failing, and learning again. In those days, mountain men survived by blending with the wilderness itself. They learned from the native tribes, the Crow, the Shoshone, the Blackfeet, who had lived here long before the trappers arrived. From them, Elias learned to move with the wind at his back, to step only where the snow lay softest, and to keep his scent downwind from the herd. These weren't tricks or shortcuts, they were lessons written by centuries of survival. As dusk fell, the valley turned blue with shadow. Far across a clearing, Elias spotted movement, a small herd of elk grazing beneath a stand of aspen. His pulse slowed. This was what he had been searching for. He slid his rifle from his shoulder, checked the flint, and crouched low behind a drift of snow. The cold bit into his fingers, but he didn't move. Every sense was tuned to the world around him. A twig cracked. One elk lifted its head, ears flicking. The moment hung in silence, suspended like ice before a thaw. Then Elias exhaled, steady and slow. The hunt had begun. For hours he moved through the forest, shadowing the herd. The snow squeaked beneath his moccasins, and his breath plumed in soft bursts. To track an animal here was more than skill. It was endurance, patience, and faith in instinct. He studied the wind, pressing a pinch of snow to his lips to feel its drift. When it shifted north, he adjusted his route. To startle the herd now would mean losing everything. His tools were simple but sacred. The flintlock rifle, its walnut stock worn smooth by use, was a lifeline. Each shot required time and precision. Pour the powder, pack the wad, seat the ball, prime the pan. No man wasted a bullet. His powder horn, carved from buffalo bone, was sealed tight against the moisture of melting snow. At his belt hung a knife he had forged himself from a broken file, tempered in cabin fire, its edge maintained with a whetstone he'd carried since boyhood. These were extensions of his body, the difference between living and not. The elk moved into a clearing near the creek. The biggest bull stood apart from the herd, his antlers wide and heavy. Elias positioned himself downwind, kneeling behind a fallen log. The stillness of the moment was almost unbearable. He raised his rifle, sighted along the barrel, and squeezed the trigger. The flash of the pan flared bright against the snow. The sound of the shot rolled through the valley like thunder. When the smoke cleared, the bull was down. The rest of the herd scattered into the trees, hooves drumming against the frozen ground. Elias waited, his heart pounding, before stepping forward. The bull lay still in the snow, steam rising from its body. For a long time, he said nothing. Then he bowed his head. "Thank you," he whispered, a habit learned from the old hunters who believed every life taken must be honored. There was no celebration, only work. He drew his knife and began the slow, deliberate process of field dressing. He worked with practiced care, removing the organs, draining the blood, and separating the meat into manageable pieces. In the 1820s, every part of an animal served a purpose. The hide would become a new coat or trade goods. The sinew would be dried and twisted into bowstrings. Even the bones would be boiled to make glue. Waste nothing. That was the rule of the mountains. As the light faded, Elias built a small fire beside the kill. He cut thin strips of meat and laid them across a lattice of willow branches to dry near the flames. This was the first step toward making jerky, a food that could last months without spoiling. The smoke curled upward, carrying the scent of blood into the night. That scent did not go unnoticed. From somewhere in the distance came the long, rising howl of a wolf. Then another, closer. Elias stiffened, his hand tightening on his knife. He knew that sound well. Wolves traveled in packs, and they were bold when hunger pressed them close to starvation. He packed his supplies quickly, tying what meat he could onto his sled. The fire hissed as snow fell onto the coals. The howls echoed again, this time from both sides of the valley. The night deepened, and the cold grew sharper. Elias began the long trek back toward his cabin, the moonlight glinting off the frozen river. Each step was heavy, the sled dragging behind him, but he did not stop. The forest was alive now, the rustle of paws in the underbrush, the faint glimmer of eyes between the trees. Wolves were patient hunters, too. They would follow him until they found an opening. He kept his rifle close, but firing in the dark was dangerous. Instead, he moved carefully, using the rising wind to cover his scent. Snow began to fall harder, thick flakes that blurred the world into white. The wolves' howls grew distant, swallowed by the storm. When he finally reached the ridge above his camp, the horizon had begun to pale with the first light of dawn. The small cabin appeared below, its roof heavy with snow, smoke curling weakly from the chimney. Inside, the fire had burned low, leaving only glowing coals. Elias hung the meat above the flames, letting the smoke harden its surface. He rubbed his hands, cracked from cold, and stared into the firelight. For a long time, there was only the sound of wind and wood popping in the hearth. He thought about the hunt, not as victory, but as survival. Out here, every day tested a man's patience, skill, and humility. The mountain gave what it wished and took what it pleased. The men who forgot that truth were the ones who vanished come spring. As the sun rose over the peaks, Elias whispered the old code he had learned from trappers long gone: respect the land, or the land will take its due. He closed his eyes and listened to the mountain breathing around him. The wolves had gone silent, the storm had passed, and smoke rose steady into the morning air. In the heart of the wilderness, Elias Crow had earned another day, another lesson written in frost, blood, and silence.